There comes a moment, somewhere around 60, when you stop worrying about how you're supposed to appear and start speaking from the strange, unfiltered truth that settles in behind a lifetime of carefully rehearsed interviews. Hollywood likes its legends polished, predictable, and politely evasive. You're expected to glide across red carpets, answer personal questions with a delicate balance of charm and avoidance, and let the studios do the myth-making for you. But I've never been very good at playing by those rules. I've spent decades watching my life get summarized in headlines, simplified for public consumption, or wrapped in narratives that never truly reflected who I was or who I became. After 60 years on this earth, 40 in this industry, and countless characters who taught me something about myself, I've reached the point where silence feels heavier than honesty. So, this, whatever you want to call it, is my own little opening of the curtain. Not a tell-all scandal. Not a confession. Not gossip handed down in hushed tones at after-parties. Instead, it's a reflection on the 7 men whose presence shaped me. 7 actors whose influence colored the emotional palette of my life and my craft. 7 chapters in a private history no one ever really knew, because the connections that change us don't always happen in hotel rooms or tabloids. Sometimes they happen between takes or in a rehearsal hall, or during the quiet moments when fame recedes and 2 people see each other clearly. This is not a catalog of secret affairs. This is the story of chemistry, artistic, emotional, and occasionally dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with who we were becoming. And yes, I'll name the names, because the truth I'm telling isn't about scandal, it's about how these men helped shape the woman I am. 1. Richard Gere. Richard was the first man in my career who made me understand the difference between performing opposite someone and truly meeting them on screen. I was young enough that the glittering world of movies still felt like an enormous game I wasn't sure I had the right to play in. He was established, calm, composed, and carried himself with the kind of instinctive confidence that can either intimidate you or inspire you. During the Cotton Club, the hours between rehearsals were often more transformative than anything captured on film. Richard had a way of watching, listening, and inviting you into a deeper emotional space without ever saying much. His presence was quiet but gravitational. He made you want to meet him at the same level of truth. When he looked at you in a scene, it felt like every pretense you'd brought to set evaporated. There was nothing scandalous about us, but there was something significant. Working with him taught me how dangerous genuine emotional vulnerability in acting can feel. Dangerous because it blurs lines not in reality, but in the imagination. Scenes became conversations, conversations became revelations, and I realized acting could be a place where 2 people explore corners of themselves they didn't know existed. Richard was the first co-star who made me feel that intensity, that sense of stepping into deeper water. And I never forgot it. 2. Mickey Rourke. If Richard brought silence and steadiness, Mickey brought the opposite, an energy like a live wire. When he walked into a room during his peak years, the air shifted, not in a romantic way, but in a volatile, unpredictable way that made you sit up straighter. We crossed paths during an era when both of us were navigating the difficult space between youthful ambition and adult identity. Mickey was raw talent wrapped in contradictions, charming one moment, explosive the next, brilliant in ways that felt almost accidental. He didn't act so much as erupt on camera. What he awakened in me had nothing to do with attraction. It was a creative awakening, an awareness that emotion didn't always have to be controlled, edited, or channeled politely. Mickey taught me that chaos had a place in craft, that sometimes you have to break your own habits to find something real. He also showed me the danger of losing yourself in that intensity. Working with him was like balancing on the rail of a moving train, thrilling, exhilarating, and completely unsustainable for long. But every artist needs that one figure who shakes them, who challenges their assumptions, who ignites a fire they didn't know they needed. For me, Mickey was that earthquake. 3. Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken has always possessed a presence unlike anyone else's. When we worked together, I learned quickly that nothing about him, his timing, his focus, his inner world, was predictable. Where Mickey was chaos, Walken was precision. A kind of quiet, eerie, mesmerizing precision that made you feel like every gesture, every breath, every pause meant something. He approached scenes like puzzles, exploring angles no one else even noticed. When he looked at me between takes, I often felt like he could read the thoughts behind my expressions. That intensity wasn't romantic, it was psychological, almost hypnotic. Working with him felt like participating in an elaborate emotional chess match where the stakes were far higher than the script implied. That he challenged me intellectually and creatively. He made me question how much emotional truth I was willing to bring into my work. And he made me understand that some actors aren't just performing, they're excavating. Christopher taught me that immersion is not about losing yourself. It's about letting yourself expand. For Sean Penn, Sean was fire, pure, concentrated, uncompromising fire. And fire has a way of exposing everything around it. We met during a time when I was transitioning from ingenue roles to more demanding emotional terrain. Sean was already established as a volcanic presence on screen and off. What surprised me wasn't the intensity, it was the honesty underneath it. He didn't do artifice. He didn't do polite pretenses. He didn't do masks unless the role demanded it. Working with Sean was like stepping into a chamber where the only acceptable currency was truth. Not the glossy Hollywood version, real, sometimes uncomfortable truth. He brought out emotional transparency in people, often unintentionally. He made me understand that authenticity in acting isn't just a technique, it's a risk. And not everyone is willing to take it. Our connection was rooted in creative respect, not romance. But the impact was lasting. He made me braver. 5. Kevin Costner. Kevin represented something entirely different. A polished, grounded, all-American steadiness that contrasted sharply with the tempestuous energy of some of the others. When our paths crossed at industry events and charity functions, he always carried himself with a calm ease, a confidence that didn't need to announce itself. People assume the golden boy archetype is simple, but Kevin was anything but simple. Behind that smooth exterior was an analytical, deeply thoughtful person who cared intensely about storytelling and structure. When we talked, the conversations had weight. He asked questions that made me examine my own motivations, not as a performer, but as a person navigating a world built on illusion. Working with him, even briefly, taught me the value of subtlety. Not every emotional revelation needs fireworks. Sometimes restraint is more powerful than intensity. He represented the reminder that stability can be as transformative as passion. 6. Robert De Niro. De Niro was the embodiment of disciplined artistry. By the time I encountered him on the festival circuit and later on collaborative panels, he had already become an icon. But icons are often more human than people expect. What struck me about Robert was his quiet intelligence. He wasn't theatrical about it. He wasn't performative. But when he asked you something, it was because he genuinely wanted to understand. Conversations with him had layers. They drifted from filmmaking to psychology to life without warning. He influenced me in a way that had nothing to do with chemistry and everything to do with insight. Robert made me see acting as a lifelong study rather than a career. To him, every moment was research. Every interaction was a doorway into understanding people. He reminded me that curiosity is the engine of longevity. 7. Nicolas Cage. And then there was Nicholas. Brilliant, eccentric, unpredictable Nicholas, an actor who refused to exist in the middle of anything. With him, everything was heightened, electric, slightly off-balanced in the most fascinating way. What Nicholas taught me was the value of creative courage. He wasn't afraid to be misunderstood. He wasn't afraid to take risks that looked absurd on paper, but turned extraordinary on screen. That kind of bravery is rare. It's contagious. Whenever our paths crossed, the conversations were like stepping into a storm of ideas, some wild, some profound, all uniquely Nicholas. He reminded me that art thrives on risk, and playing it safe is the death of imagination.